Jordan Chariton reporting for the Young Turks in South Carolina. Where are you, brother?
I'm with my friend Donald Trump behind me in Spartanburg, South Carolina, right outside his rally at the Marriott.
Okay. And what's the word on the street there?
We just got here right before we were coming on with you, but people in the line, it's a full line, and most of them think Trump's going to win.
Of course, you're at the Trump headquarters. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you were down in South Carolina for a little bit. Were you talking to people mainly about the Bernie Sanders-Hillary Clinton race that's going to come up a little bit later, obviously? Or did you get a chance to talk to folks about the Republican side?
Let me tell you, Cenk, the reason we were a little late here because we had a little Confederate focus group at the state capitol in Columbia. We were doing some interviews with African Americans about the Democratic race, and we saw a bunch of Confederates with flags rallying. So we went over there. The common denominator, I only met one that was actually for Ben Carson. I spoke with 6 or 7 that were all for Donald Trump. And they all, one actually sang the Confederate song to me, the Dixie song. And the rest of them, even though I said, Donald Trump actually was for the flag coming down, they don't care. I asked them again, like I've asked others, what specifics is Donald Trump going to do for America? The wall, every one of them, priority number 1, the wall, immigration.
Amazing. Jordan, before you came on, Wes and I were talking about he should have worn a Confederate jacket at some point, and that would have worked with those guys, right?
There's still time.
Yeah, you never know.
If he now said that he was against the wall, I bet they'd still support him. They just don't care.
It's funny you say that because I actually asked them, I really want to know, I said, how much of what Donald Trump is proposing and what he's saying do you actually think he believes? Because obviously there's people who say he's just serving up red meat to the conservative base. Most of them said, all politicians, half of what they say they don't mean. And they're okay with that. The organizer of the event, which, by the way, was to commemorate the burning down of Columbia during the Civil War, the organizer said if one thing he follows through on in 4 years, it's sealing that border. And we got in quite a testy debate about that.
Okay, man.
That's the number one issue for Republicans. Number one. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, man.
I'm not surprised.
Do they think the wall is going to be between South and North Carolina?
The man I was just telling you about basically told me that the majority of people coming into the country have ill motives, and we don't know who they are. We don't know what they're planning. We got into the Muslim debate. When I spoke out, which you speak about sometimes, I said, so I'm sure you're very concerned about the mass shootings going on. If you're very concerned about the girl who was shot and killed in San Francisco by illegal immigrant, they say, well, there's nothing you could really do about that. And we got into a little gun control debate. But listen, I get a common theme. They don't say it, but I do get a common theme that it's not really about that they're afraid of their jobs being taken, afraid of murder. I think there's a lot of fear about them becoming the minority one day.
Especially in the South, and I've talked about this in the past, where they think, my God, if they were to ever do to us what we did to them, we'd be in a world of trouble, right? So there is that instinctual fear that comes from a place we have trouble understanding because we don't think that way. Like there's no minorities that I know of in the country who are like, wait till we're the majority, we're gonna get the sons of bitches. So we can't comprehend what they find so scary.
It's unspoken.
Right.
Yeah.
I also talked to one very, very true blue conservative who told me that if Donald Trump were to win the nomination, he would vote for Bernie Sanders if given the choice.
Wow.
I said to him, well, you're telling me that you are a very limited government, strong national defense. I don't think Bernie is really focused on limited government. So why is Trump so egregious to you? And he said he was brash. He said that he is basically revolting people from coming into the Republican Party. And he said he's unpresidential.
Well, okay, well, there's that contingent, too. That's interesting. Okay. Before we go to the Democratic side real quick, first let me note that it's 8 minutes past the hour, and no one's called anything yet. So that can't be That's not good news for Donald Trump. It doesn't mean he's going to lose, but it's not good news for him. So stay right there. We'll be very interested to see what the reaction there is going to be if he only wins by a little bit, or if he even loses. That'll be very interesting to see. Any other notes on the Republicans from the field before we turn to the Democratic side?
I should tell you that Donald Trump and his advisors will not speak to us. Shocker. I have been putting in requests. They told us, no, he's not available tonight, and nobody else is available. So it might be an ambush situation. I'll have to get one of the Secret Service on my side. Other than that, a lot of what I saw here was more on the Democratic side. But I will say another thing that the Confederates spoke about was enormous taxation. They said they're being taxed too much, this and that. I did bring up, are you aware that Donald Trump's tax plan would put $1 trillion into the debt? $10 trillion into the debt, and also give very, very wealthy people huge tax breaks. Empty stairs.
Of course. And if we were the mainstream media, once we found out Jordan does not have access to the Donald Trump campaign, we'd be like, oh, no, that's it. You got to go. Instead, Jordan, I'm considering a raise.
Thanks.
Okay. Now, let's get serious. Democratic side, when you talk to folks down in South Carolina, Hillary Clinton has a big lead there. What was the anecdotal sense you got from the folks you talked to?
This really ran the gamut. Yesterday, I was in Charleston, South Carolina. I interviewed the president of the NAACP down there, which is actually the oldest chapter of the NAACP down there. She says, we don't endorse. Within 3 seconds, I knew she was voting for Hillary Clinton. She is very, very pragmatic. And I was talking to, our producer here, that what I got from her really is, you know what, we'll take what we can get. Which is a little depressing. I'm not an African American, but a lot of these folks I spoke to down here really are resigned to the fact that mostly white politicians have said a lot and made a lot of promises and fought for the African American vote, but then when in office, there was really no specific action for them. If you notice, I got a little haircut. I got it on camera, interviewing the barber. There were two barbers that were very, very outspoken and opinionated. This barber shop is in Charleston, and a lot of people there talk politics. They basically told me that they were Bernie Sanders supporters. So I asked them, I'm not one to really tell people how to vote, but you would think that Bernie's policies would really resonate with a lot of African Americans. One told me that a lot of African Americans like Hillary because they like Bill because of certain activities he did in the White House.
So that's still real. I mean, people say that, but that's still actually affecting people's vote.
They did get more serious, and they actually told me that they think a lot of African Americans kind of stick with what they know, who they're familiar with. A lot of them don't really know Bernie Sanders, haven't done the research. I spoke with one person today, actually, who told me, there's certain people who, have older people who have jobs, working 9 to 5, who do their research, while some other people, really don't really do the research or have the time, single mother, raising many kids, multiple jobs. But I asked, is there a growing divide between your older, establishment activists, the Al Sharptons of the world, who they were repelled when I even brought up his name, surprisingly.
Oh,
and the younger activists who are, the Black Lives Matter, and the people who they're not interested in incremental change. They're demanding serious change. And he said, absolutely, young people are definitely more open to Bernie's message.
So many great interviews that Jordan and Eric have done while they're traveling throughout the country, following these candidates. They're all on TYT Politics, so much more than we can fit on the main channel. That's why we created TYT Politics. If you love this campaign and you're following it, by all means, youtube.com/TYT Politics. And he didn't get a chance to get to it there. We had a little bit of a problem with the connection, but he's got an explosive interview he just recently did with a young African-American activist with very sharp opinions about Hillary Clinton. So, so everybody check that out. We'll go back to Jordan a little bit later in these proceedings to see how it's going.